Okay, today our guest is Patty Miller, and she's the Education and Outreach Director at the NOAA's Sanctuary, the Hawaiian Island Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary, the longest name of a sanctuary probably. And I've known Patty for many, many years, and we're really happy to have her here today. So go ahead, Patty.
Okay, thanks, Donna. Thanks for having us join you today. As Donna said, I'm with the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary. It's a mouthful there. We are one of many sanctuaries. There are 13 of us in the country, and we have been brought on to protect special environments. And for us, it is protecting the Hawaiian Island or the humpback whales out here. And we do that through education, through research, and through conservation. And one of the main things that you might have heard about us is the disentanglement of the humpback whales. So it's our team that goes out when they get a report of a whale that's entangled in fishing gear, fishing pots, etc., and does the disentangling with them. And I'm going to show you a video later on about what that is. But I want to start here by talking about actually about the whale. Well, let's see how much you know about the humpback whale. I have a little quiz for you here. So let me see if I can bring this up, and we will. Oops. Sorry. Let me go back to the beginning of this whole thing, and you're way up here at the top. So sorry. Don't read it because I don't want you to know the answers yet. Okay, again, we're with the Hawaiian Islands. Let me make this, there you go. Okay, now, we're with the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary, as I said. We want to start, like I had said, with questions about the whales. Let's see what you do know. So, question number one, why are they called humpbacks? Well, it seems there should be a logical answer to this. In fact, it's not terribly logical. It's not because they have a hump on their back like a camel would, but it's because when they dive down underwater, you're going to see this hump of the back come up. The dorsal fin is really insignificant on a whale, but that hump will come up. The head goes down underwater, and you then will see this little hump of the back, and then the tail will come out. And from that, they started to call them the humpback whales. Well, in the East Coast, the whales are called the right whales because many, many years ago, when they went out to hunt the whales, the guys would point to the whale and say, that's the right one, go get it. And they started calling them the right whales. And to this day, they're still called the right whales. So that's why they're called the humpbacks. Question number two, how big is an adult humpback whale? Very, very big is the answer. They are 40 to 50 tons. They are 40 to 50 feet long. And I love this picture because it shows how insignificant we are. That's about a 6 foot tall person that is down there next to the tail of the whale. And it gives you an idea of how big we are compared to that whale. And if you were out there in the water with this whale, if that whale flipped its tail up, you would go flying with this thing. They're huge. One way to compare it to is a large school bus. So think back to when you guys were in high school and when you went on a field trip, the biggest bus is about as long as the whale is. Obviously not as heavy or as wide, but it's about that length, is about the length of an adult humpback whale. A baby is actually about 15 feet, okay? So are they a kind of fish? Well, you guys know this answer. No, they are not. They are mammals. And if we had to go through what the characteristics of a mammal are, they are warm-blooded. We have hair. So where in the world is the hair on a humpback whale? Well, we'll come back to that answer. They breathe air. About every 15 minutes, a whale needs to come to the surface to get air. About every 5 minutes, if it is a baby, depending on the size. But if you were out on a boat and you see one dive down, see that hump of a back, and you see it dive down, you wait about 15 minutes and that whale will reappear. So they do breathe air, need to come to the surface. They are born alive. Again, the baby was about 15 feet when it's born. And they drink the mother's milk, okay? Mammals, just like we are. So they have hair. Where are those? Where's the hair on the humpback whale? Notice those bumps on the head of the whale there. Those are called tubercles. And in the middle of each tubercle, you have a little hair sticking up. This is insignificant hair, but it's there. They don't know what that hair does. They think maybe it's got something to do with them helping to find out where they are. There's a sensing thing about it. Do not know, but they have been able to identify a hair in the middle of each of those tubercles. They breathe air. Now, they have two blowholes. A dolphin has one. When the whale is above the surface of the water, the nostrils are open. When they go underwater, they are able to close them. So they have a very, very strong muscle that helps them close those nostrils together to keep the water out as they go underwater. So, and I want you to try this. Can you close your nostrils without touching them? I don't think so. Okay, doesn't work. Very, very powerful muscle. The babies drink the mother's milk. The baby will come up under the mother and will just nudge a slit. The whales do not have nipples. They will nudge a slit that is under the whale, and that milk just pours out into the mouth. They drink about 100 gallons of milk a day. So that mom is constantly producing milk. It's very, very thick and fat. And so it doesn't dilute immediately when it hits the water. It has a chance to go squirt down. It's like a little hose, squirts right down into that baby's mouth. And this is an interesting one. This is something you guys can go back and take a look at. This is a theory. They figure that the whales originally were part of the dinosaur era. They were land animals, and over time they became the water animals. And today they say that, and again, this is a theory, that their characteristics are closest to what is alive today besides them is the hippopotamus. So it's just kind of cute. They got cousins that are out there. Again, just a theory. Now, how do you spot the whale out in the ocean? For those of you that have been around Hawaii for a long time, you know that you can see them easily if you take a look out while you're out there. And one thing to think about is there is the blow. There are the body parts that you will see, and the awesome breach. Now, the blow itself is really cool. It comes out at about 300 miles an hour. If you are close, if the whale is close to shore or you're in a boat that you're kind of close, you can hear it. It's this whooshing sound, very strong whooshing sound. I was up in Alaska on a boat close to the whale, got the blow, and it smelled absolutely terrible. It's like it's giving off its bad breath. It smelled like kind of like rotting broccoli, or when you cook broccoli too long. I was thinking that it reminded me of. It comes out, like I said, about 300 miles an hour, very, very fast. And they collect this steam or whatever you want, this moisture that comes out of that blow, and they study this. They have a thing, they actually call it a drone called the SnotBot. And from that, they are able to collect some of that, I call it the steam or the moisture that is coming out. And from that, they can check their DNA. They can tell if it's a male or a female. They can tell to a certain extent where it has been by things like if there's pollutants in the water, they can trace the pollutants and then trace where the whales have been. But part of that is used to really check the health of the whale, and also to try to figure out where is that whale being seen and who is it related to. If the baby has, they can identify from the mom to the dad to the baby and locate different areas of where these whales are going. So again, great name called the SnotBot. I wonder who named it that thing. Body parts you're gonna see the pec fins, and these are about 15 feet long, and they slap up and down and up and down and up and down in the water. I've watched this, and it might happen 20, 30 times where that whale is just, it's like it's waving at you. Not sure what it's doing. They think it might be just waving, just getting some exercise, airing itself, maybe cooling off its body, or knocking off barnacles and things that might be stuck to it. But it is a signal that you will see from the water as you're looking for the whales. You might see the tail fluke come up. Tails are big. They are a third the size of the body. That tail comes up, it flaps itself up and down, up and down, up and down in the water. And again, you can see that happen over and over and over again. They might bring their head up, do what's called the spy hop, and they actually kind of spin around as they do this. Got to be looking out for who's out there, where's my friends. I've never actually seen the spy hop. I think it'd be kind of cool to see that part of it, but it is a behavior you might be able to see. And there is one here that's really interesting. It's called the head lunge. These two males are fighting. They are fighting over the whale that's out in front of them, which is a female. Now these guys, what you're gonna see if you're, I've seen it from shore, you're more likely to out in a boat because it probably happens out farther, is a lot of splashing of the water. And these whales are pounding on top of each other. They are fighting for that female. They want to be the boyfriend of that girl. So it's kind of survival of the fittest. They will fight. They will actually draw blood. Remember, they're about 50 tons. So if you got 50 tons coming down on your face and scraping away, you're going to scrape away skin. They're not out to kill each other. They're just to scare one of them away. And what's interesting is that our researchers said at one point, they counted 50 whales underwater underneath these guys where they could see them lining up. And so the stronger one would win up here. The other guy would swim off. Another one would come up from underneath, fight for that female also with that whale. One of them would win, one of them would swim off, and this would continue. The part I like here is that the female, she makes the choice in the end and she says, okay, you guys have had your fun. I'm not interested in any of you. And she just swims off, or she picks who might be her temporary mate there for a while. They do not stay together. The mom and the calf do, but dad disappears. But that's what's called the head lunge. Again, a lot of splashing will give you an indication that that's what's going on out there. And then if you're lucky, you're gonna see the breach, which is really cool. Think of that whale, 50 tons coming all the way out of the water. I always challenge the younger kids to do this. You get in a bathtub or in a swimming pool, do not touch the bottom. How much of your body can you bring out of the water? I'm lucky to get my head out of the water. Very, very powerful muscle that's between the body and the tail called the peduncle. And it's what it uses to get itself out of the water. The pec fins are actually, the side fins are used for steering, kind of like we use as we're swimming, used for steering. The power of that whale and the movement comes from the tail. Now, I want to talk about research here. And one of the things they're always looking for is how many whales are out here in the water. You know, researching a humpback whale is really tough. You cannot put them into captivity. They're too big, they would not survive. You'd never get a tank big enough to do that. So they've come up with different ways of looking at the whales. This is one way of counting the whales, is that when they're out in the water, they sit and they wait for the whale to bring its tail up out of the water. When the tail gets out of the water, they snap a picture of that tail. They take it back into their office, get on their computer, and see if they can match it to another tail that they have seen before. A dolphin, they will take pictures of the dorsal fins, and they'll identify them by the dorsal fin. A whale, they cannot do by computer. They have to sit and look at that pictures. They've got thousands of pictures, and they'll go through all of those pictures until they either find one that matches, or they can say, this is probably a new whale that we have never seen before. Here we want you to play researcher, and can you match this particular one? Where is the match to that tail? You're looking at coloration, you're looking at shape, you're looking at indentations in the whale, etc. And as you've probably identified by now, it is number 2353, which is down in the left-hand corner. I would find this real hard being out on a boat. Remember, the boat's going up and down the water like this. The whales are kind of going up and down like this, and you got a lot of motion going on. You're looking through a camera trying to snap that picture. I would be really seasick, but it's one of the challenges of being a whale researcher. You know, the other type of research they have done that we talked about here is using that SnotBot to collect DNA from the whales. Okay, let's go a little bit farther here. Where do humpback whales live? We're going to come back and talk about research here in a minute, but let's keep going on this part first. They live in both, our whales live here in Hawaii during the winter time. We have no food here. They come down here to mate, they frolic, they play, they mate, they give birth down here. And they think that the first whales that show up down here are usually a pregnant mom that is ready to give birth. It is a safer place to give birth down here versus up in Alaska where there are more predators. They go back up to Alaska starting in about April, and they spend the next several months just feeding. They eat and they eat and they eat. And then they get full and they've stored all that food in their blubber, and they turn around and they come back here. And the 1st of October is when one usually gets back down to here. A couple years ago, they found that we were missing some whales. They didn't show up right away, and they were not as many at all that had come down. And the thought was that the whales had actually had troubles feeding, and they're blaming this or thinking that it's got something to do with just climate change, ocean temperatures rising, and not having as much food produced up there as usual. They eat about a ton a day of little tiny fish and krill, and when you think about how many animals are up there eating, you realize just how much food is necessary. Now let's take a look at how they feed. So a humpback whale has no teeth. They have what's called baleen, and this baleen hangs from the roof of the mouth. It is big, they're plates that hang down. I've got a piece of it here that I'll show you once I come out of this. They hang down from the roof of the mouth though, and they've got little hairs on the edge of them. These plates are about 6 feet long, and when the whale feeds, it opens that mouth up really wide. It takes in a big gulp of water. It then takes its tongue, which is the size of about a small car. The mouth is about 15 feet long, huge mouth. The tongue is about the size of a small car, twirls that tongue around in the mouth, pulls those little fish and shrimp and krill off of the hairs, and swallows it down. And we actually have a video here I'm going to show you in a second. Here's the krill. You can see all of that pinkish colored stuff on the beach is krill. Lots and lots of it, luckily, up in the cold Alaska waters. We do not raise it down here. You see that bottom jaw of the whale and how wide that whale can open its mouth, take in that big gulp of water, and feed from there. Now what happens here is that the whales will swim around and around and around in a circle. They make what's called a bubble net. And they're blowing bubbles up, and they're creating a net around a school of fish. And as they do that, all the little fish and krill come together in a ball. They're getting them all kind of closed in, stuck together. When they finish that bubble wall, they'll come up, they'll take a gulp of fish and water, and they come up with, well, they're getting a gulp of water with it, take a gulp of that fish, and then they sink back down. Years ago, I was up in Alaska, and we were doing some filming and actually saw this up close. It was really cool. They started, how the whales knew where we were, we don't know. But we were right in front of where they were feeding. They started blowing their bubble net, and they made this huge, huge circle. And when the bubble net closed together, and while they're doing this, they're howling. You know, down here, you'll hear them sing, and you'll hear a certain kind of pattern of song. But they were howling like a ghost howling. In the olden days, they said the fishermen used to think that the whales were, that they weren't whales, but there was some kind of monster down out underwater because of that howling sound. But these guys are howling as they do this. As soon as they finished that bubble net, the howling stopped. Then a minute later, they all come to the surface. There were probably 10 of them in this big circle, so you can imagine how big the circle was. Taking a gulp, they've got a gulp of water and all these little fish and krill, and the fish and krill and stuff is just flying out of the mouth. They came to the surface, they basically spit out most of the water, they sunk back down, and then they started again the howling and making this circle as they went around and around and around. After a couple minutes of it, well, no, a couple minutes, after probably an hour of doing this, they all came to the surface. And we looked off, we couldn't figure out why they had stopped what they were doing. They saw another group of whales off to the side, And that other group on the other side of the bay had heard them feeding, and they were coming over, and it's like, oh, they got food, let's come check out this restaurant. As the whales came up to us, our whales came to the surface, chased them off, said, we're not sharing, chased them away. They came back and they started eating again. It was just a really, really cool process. The lower picture there shows you that mouth open filled with the fish and the krill. And now this, let's see if I can make this work. This is a feeding, that's the little fish. There's the whales coming to the surface. The big mouth is open. It has just closed down. It is sinking down. We had a whole bunch of these guys. Like I said, there were probably 10 of them in the group where we were, and sinking back down again. All the little birds are flying around because they think they're going to grab something that comes flying out of the mouth of that whale. So pretty cool. Let me do that one. Okay, we'll stop with there. Can a whale eat you? What do you think? Could a whale swallow you? That mouth is huge. You'd fit. If a car fits, we'd fit in there. But the back of the throat is only as big as about the size of a grapefruit. It's like size of a dryer hose, not big enough for us to go down. It could not swallow a shark. It could not swallow a big fish. Remember, it does not have teeth. It has baleen instead. So that whale will never swallow you. The humpback whale will not. Again, it's the size of the throat. I love this. They eat about 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of krill and small fish every day. It's about the same as eating 250 Big Macs every single hour, if you can imagine that. I have troubles getting one Big Mac down, but 250 every single hour. Pretty cool. Do whales make sounds? Yes, they do. They sing, they howl, but it's only the males that actually are the singers. They do not know exactly why, and the whale will be upside down in the water like what you see here when it is singing. There's a lot of research and projects going on trying to figure out about what the whales are singing and what the sounds mean. They sing a certain song. All the whales in the Pacific, North Pacific area sing a certain song. It's the same patterns over and over again each year. It would be like la 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 la, and they'd repeat that over and over again. There is a lead whale. Don't know how he gets assigned to be the lead whale, but we'll change part of that. And so researchers will hear this change, that part of the song changes, and over about 5 years, the entire song changes, but it carries throughout the whole Pacific. Somehow they are communicating. Again, they don't know exactly why. Is it to talk to each other? Is it a mating kind of thing? Are they attracting the females? They don't know. If these guys could just talk to us. Now, threats and dangers, and this is something we want to get into more here, is what are things that impact the humpback whales? We have tiger sharks here in Hawaii that would go after a baby, a hurt adult whale. Remember how big those whales are and how big the tiger shark is. So it's got to be more someone that has got a size thing or an injury to it. In Alaska, you have the killer whales, and the moms and babies tend to go back up to Alaska together, not alone, and it's got to be safety in numbers as they're swimming back to protect those babies from the killer whales. But we are the biggest danger for these humpback whales, and it is trash and fishing gear and entanglement, which we are going to get into a little bit more here, talking about the entanglement issue and what is there. So let me stop this right now, and I want to go instead to another, how do I get out of this? I share this again. Let me bring this up, and let me bring up a video here that talks about the whales and how they go about rescuing them. So this is a team from the humpback whale staff, and it's out here off of Maui, and this shows how they go about disentangling a whale.
There he goes again. He's gonna try again. Nice. He's just barely below the surface, guys. Who's coming up?
Freeing a 45-foot, 40-ton humpback whale entangled in gear is no easy task. These animals are so large and powerful that they often rip the gear right off the ocean floor and swim off with it, in some cases, thousands of miles. For those animals that are relocated, the act of disentangling a large whale is dangerous for the whale and the rescuers alike. The Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary's rescue team is one of the few disentanglement response teams that is authorized by NOAA Fisheries to free large whales from life-threatening entanglements. The Sanctuary's team partners with other agencies like NOAA Fisheries, Hawaii's Department of Land and Natural Resources, and the United States Coast Guard. So how do we cut a 40-ton free-swimming whale free of gear? First, we do not get in the water. Instead, we work from boats using a modification of an old whaling technique called kegging. Historically, kegging involved attaching barrels or kegs to the whales by harpooning them. The extra drag and buoyancy of the barrels would slow the whale down, keep it at the surface where it could eventually be approached. Today, for disentanglement purposes, we use grapples, like the one you see here being thrown, to attach to the gear that is entangling the animal. Once attached, we get a Nantucket sleigh ride, just like the whalers used to get in their wooden skiffs. However, instead of skiffs, we use inflatable boats. And instead of wooden barrels, we attach large plastic buoys, as seen here, as our kegging buoys to provide drag and buoyancy. Over time, the animal will remain at or near the surface where we can haul ourselves closer. At this point, we can assess the entanglement to determine how best to cut the animal free. This whale has multiple wraps of line around its tail, with buoys and several hundred feet of line trailing. The trailing line provides drag, causing the wraps to cut deeply into the animal. The rescuers use a specially designed hooked knife on the end of a pole to reach forward to cut the whale free. Here we have some helmet cam footage showing one rescuer keeping the rescue inflatable in position right behind the animal. The other rescuer has a 20-foot pole with a hooked knife on the end. The knife is dull on the outside and sharp on the inside, surface to help protect the animal. The rescuer reaches forward to carefully cut the wraps, which over time have embedded themselves deeply into the whale's tail. 3 cuts are made, at which time the remaining wrap is shed and the whale is entirely free of all gear. This animal has been saved from what was once a life-threatening entanglement. We realize we can't save every whale entangled in gear. However, we can gain information from our efforts as to reduce the threat in the future. Over the past several years, the Sanctuary and network members have freed more than 20 large whales in Hawaii from life-threatening entanglements, removing over 10,000 feet of line. Some animals, like the calf shown here, were entangled in marine debris. Other animals were entangled in fishing gear. This animal entangled through the mouth was carrying hundreds of feet of line and a large buoy. Once cut free, we found that the gear had been set off the Pribilof Islands in the center of the Bering Sea. This is a straight line distance of over 2,500 nautical miles from the Hawaiian Islands. Over 250 trained responders across multiple islands work together to respond to entangled whales. Many members of the ocean community assist with the effort by reporting, assessing, documenting, and standing by until an authorized team arrives. While we will continue to free large whales from life-threatening entanglements, our ultimate goal is to prevent or at least reduce the threat of entanglement for these animals into the future.
That whale made a lot better sounds than what I did when I was singing there. That's one example of how the programs that we do here is, like I said, very important, is that rescue of the whales. I want to show you another one here that talks about research. You know, you guys are coming up, you're trying to figure out if you want to become a marine scientist or not, or working for organizations like ours. We have many different things you can do working for NOAA. You know, I am not a scientist, I am an educator. I develop exhibits and I teach a lot of kids in programs about things. We have people that are just like the computer work and do that. We have the hardcore scientists that like to do the research, a lot of different things, but there's opportunities out there for you guys to get involved in internships. And if you want to become work for NOAA, you need to get your internships. At this point, don't know exactly what your ages are, but if you are a sophomore, a freshman or a sophomore, you want to look up a scholarship called the Hollings, Hollings scholarship. It gives you, it's between $7,000 and $10,000. It has changed in the last couple of years of scholarship money 1 year. During that summer, you go to some NOAA facility somewhere in the country and you get to choose, along with the people choosing you, of a project that you would do, and you spend 10 weeks and you're paid for this time also. Your housing is paid for, you are paid to do an internship with NOAA, doing something. You come out with a finished project, you go to DC at the end of that time and present your projects with others. You are get given the opportunity to meet different NOAA staff while you're there. And then the following year, you again get that $7,000 to $10,000 in scholarship money. It's a great program. That's for undergraduates. For graduates, there's a bunch of other scholarships that are out there. And you need to just Google NOAA scholarships and internships to get an idea of what some of those things are. Now, let's take a look here at, I want to show you one more video, short video here, about a researcher that works for us that talks about specifically a research project that they're working on here at the Humpback Whales. It's another way of identifying where the whales are. This is Eden Zhang, and she's working full-time for us at this point. And take a look at what she does and how they collect this information. This is kind of cool.
Hi, my name is Eden Zhang, and I'm a research specialist at the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary. We're out here today in the West Maui waters, right off Olowalu, to recover one of our acoustic mooring packages. This is part of many efforts that we have at the sanctuary, different research efforts. For example, we do short-term tagging that helps us understand what the whales are doing beneath the surface. It helps us to quantify their activity levels and also gives us an idea of what they're doing overnight, which little is known about humpback whales and what they're doing overnight. We also do vessel surveys to help quantify and estimate whale densities in our waters. And then the other part of our research involves this acoustic monitoring. And acoustic monitoring is really valuable. During the months December to April, whale chorusing is the dominant sound here in our Hawaiian waters. And so by monitoring that, we're able to get an idea of what's happening with them. So when they're arriving to our waters, their relative presence in an area, their peak abundance, and then also when they depart. So these acoustic monitoring packages that are bottom moored, they can stay out for months at a time. So we deploy them before the season and recover them after the season, and then see what we get back from the data. So today we're going to be recovering one of our deep water ones, and our deep water ones are deeper than 100 feet, so we can't go and get them on scuba. We have to put them on acoustic releases. And the one you'll see today, it actually has a device where it will leave the temporary anchor and it'll just unscrew and the whole package will come to the surface. So it's got a float, the instrument, and then that acoustic release, and that's what sits vertical in the water column. And so each acoustic release has a unique code that enables us to talk to it. So that's what I'm going to do right now with this instrument. I'm going to put this in the water, the transducer, and that'll send that unique code to the instrument, wake it up, then I'll tell it to release, and then we'll go ahead and look for it and retrieve our instrument. Line it over. So this first code just basically wakes it up. So that helps preserve battery life since it's deployed for several months at a time. So you can hear that little ping, that's the signal being sent to the instrument. So we're 111 meters away from it, which is perfect. On a calm day like this, we'll be able to see the big bright orange float that we're going to be looking for. So I'm going to go ahead. I feel comfortable with that distance, and I'm going to go ahead and send the release code. So now the package should be at the surface in about 3 to 5 minutes. So we're going to do a full boat watch and see where this instrument pops up.
There it is, just popped up, just off our bow. Neutral.
All right, so we have recovered the acoustic recording package. As you can see, there is a lot of what we call biofouling on this. So organisms have found this in the ocean and decided to settle upon it. We've got some barnacles, some pen shells, lots of hitchhikers and crabs, so we'll try to get those overboard as quick as possible. This is the sound trap, and this is what we call a hydrophone. So that's the underwater microphone that actually captures all the sound. And what's housed inside of this metal canister here is basically the computer. That's how we program it, when we tell it to record, at what frequency range we'd like it to record. And so what we'll do is when I get back to the office, we'll be opening this up and removing the hard drives and downloading all the data. So fingers crossed, we got some good data from this whale season, and we'll keep you posted on results.
Okay, fun project. Eden's really involved in this, as you can tell, but there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do as a researcher, or I said, working for NOAA and in the science field, which you guys are learning as you're in this MOP class. I will send to your instructor a list of, we've done several webinars in this last couple of weeks by different researchers talking about projects that they have done, if you would like to take a look at those. Also, I have sent to her a listing, a place to find some information that she is going to send to you that talks about a project that we're doing that's called Sanctuary Whale Watchers. And we are looking for, we want you guys to help us find where the whales are right now. So the information that she is sending you is it's a little form that asks you certain questions. It gives you a link to send that information to, and then we're taking that information and we're going to create a map for all around the islands here of where whales were sighted. So if you're looking for something to do on Thanksgiving Day after you eat your turkey, go on out and take a look for the whales, see what you can find out there. Just any day that you happen to be out, send us that information of what is there. So I've given you a very brief introduction to what we do. You take a look at our website, the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary, and you can learn more. We do have a visitor center down here in Kihei. Unfortunately, we are closed like everything else is right now, but hopefully one of these days we will be back open and you can come down and visit us here to learn more about us. So with that, Donna, I can stop at this point. Do you have any questions or anything for me?
Okay, I'm coming back here. Hi, well, that was really great. I really enjoyed that. Here's Iris.
Oh, me too. Love it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that was really great. Let's see, I don't know that I have any questions. That was a really great presentation, and I'm sorry more people weren't here, but I will definitely be posting that on our website for our class and letting the other students know that they missed a great presentation.
And I can see where you just sent a message to the chat thing that Eden was once a MOP student a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
When she first came to Maui, she came and joined MOP, and she didn't know anybody or anything, and she just said, I want to get involved, and she just started doing everything she could. You know, every opportunity that came up, she went and did it, and she was just really gung-ho, and she's done a lot since she's been here on so many different projects.
You know, and it's what I say to all you guys that are looking for, well, some of you, you're trying to figure out by being in the MOP program, just kind of what do you want to be when you grow up? And if you do want to get into the Marine, world and get a job in this, it's like Donna said, you need to have these opportunities. You need to jump in and do anything you can and keep a record of it, guys, of what you're doing. Take pictures of what you're doing so that when you go to an employer, you have that list of all those things that you have done. I look at it very carefully. We get a lot of requests for interns to come on or people looking for jobs. And we go first to see what have you done? Where have you spent your time? How much background do you have? So it's real important to take advantage of any little thing you can do, even things like this Sanctuary Whale Watcher. You are participating in something, you are learning something by it. So I highly recommend that you do what you can, from beach cleanups to anything that is out there of opportunities.
That's what I tell the students too, because one of the things that people say is when they're first starting out, they don't have a lot on their resume, and it's hard to get a job when they haven't had other jobs. But once people see that you've volunteered and you've been willing to do the work without even getting paid sometimes, then that kind of shows that you're going to be a good worker when you are going to get paid.
Yeah. And remember also that you don't just have to be a scientist to work in this field. There's many other jobs that are tied into it. The boat drivers, that'd be cool one. Spend all your time out on a boat. We have 4 captains right now that we hire to work for us. They're official captains, boat captains, that can run the boat when they're out doing research or they're out rescuing the whales. We've got paid people that are out there taking pictures, you're doing the video work. So there's a lot of different kinds of opportunities that are there, and just you need to get some background in whatever you're really interested in. So I just highly recommend get involved in something. Being in Donna's class is great. It's the first way to start with this.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming today, Patty. It's always great to see your presentations, and that was a really good one today.
So thank
Iris,
you.
did you have any questions? No? Okay. Well, thanks again, and keep in touch.
Yep.
Hopefully we'll get to see you one of these days.
Someday we'll be back to normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. You have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Ahui ho.